My sister's frail voice cut through the sterile hospital silence. "I switched your healthy baby for my sick one," she whispered, her eyes avoiding mine. 60 years ago, in that maternity ward. I was so envious of your perfect life. I felt the vinyl chair cold beneath me, my grip tightening on her thin hand. She was fading, and this confession was her last act. I needed to hear every word, to sear it into my mind. My heart hammered, but I kept my face calm. I leaned closer. "Tell me everything, Clara." She coughed, a weak, rattling sound. "My boy was born with a heart defect. The doctors said he wouldn't live long. Yours was so strong. I just swapped the bracelets when the nurse stepped out." The monitor beeped steadily beside us. I thought of my son, David, the countless hospital visits, the struggles, the financial drain, all because of her jealousy. I smiled gently, a mask over the storm inside. "I understand," I lied. But inside, a cold resolve settled. I would not let this lie die with her. A nurse entered to check the IV, interrupting us. I stood, my knees protesting. "I have to go," I said. Clara's eyes pleaded, but I turned away. In the hallway, I pulled out my phone. My first call wouldn't be to my children. It would be to old family records, to the truth. I walked toward the exit, the automatic doors sliding open. Outside, the evening air felt heavy. I knew what I had to do next. I sat at my kitchen table, the morning light filtering through the curtains. Spread before me were David's old medical records and a few faded birth certificates. Clara's words echoed in my mind. I needed proof, something tangible to confirm her story. I knew what I had to do. Uncover the switch before anyone else in the family caught on. It cost me my peace. Every document I touched felt like a betrayal of the life I'd lived. David called while I was sorting papers. "Mom, everything all right? You sounded strange last night." I forced cheer into my voice. "Just tidying up, dear. Don't worry." After hanging up, I noticed a discrepancy in the birth dates on the certificates. A 1-day difference I'd never questioned. Why would Clara have access to both babies? Then I remembered. She volunteered at the hospital back then. Just then, the doorbell rang. It was my granddaughter, Lily, with a bag of groceries. "Grandma, you forgot your delivery day," she chirped, hugging me. I shoved the papers into a drawer, my hands trembling. She stayed for tea, chatting about school, while my mind raced. After she left, I reopened the drawer. Beneath the certificates, I found an old photo of Clara and me at the hospital. She was holding my baby, or was it hers? The date on the back was wrong. It didn't match any records. My breath caught. This was my first real clue. I drove to the county clerk's office, the photo tucked in my purse. I wanted to compare official birth records with what I had. The line was long, mostly seniors like me, and the air smelled of old paper and disinfectant. Each minute felt wasted, but I waited patiently. When my turn came, the clerk, a young woman with a bored expression, asked for details. I gave David's birth information, my voice steady. She typed slowly, then frowned. "There's a note here about a correction filed a week after the birth." My pulse quickened. "What kind of correction?" She squinted at the screen. "It says bracelet mismatch verified and resolved." That was it. The proof I needed. The realization hit me. David's entire life, the surgeries, the fear, all based on a lie. As I left, clutching the printed record, my phone buzzed. It was Clara's daughter, Martha. "Auntie, Mom passed away last night. The funeral is tomorrow." Her voice was thick with grief. I thanked her and hung up. Now, with Clara gone, the pressure was on. Who else knew? Back in my car, I stared at the document. The correction was signed by a doctor I'd never heard of. Dr. Evans. Why would a doctor approve a switch? This changed everything. The funeral home was crowded with relatives I hadn't seen in years. I stood in the back, watching Martha accept condolences. I was there to observe, to see if anyone acted suspicious about the past. The emotional toll was heavy. Every hug felt like a lie, and I had to bite my tongue to stay silent. An older man approached me, Dr. Evans, the name from the record. He looked frail now, but I recognized him from old photos. "Eleanor, right? Clara's sister," he said, his voice shaky. "I heard about your son's struggles. A shame." My skin prickled. "Why mention David?" I smiled politely. "Yes, it's been hard." He leaned closer, lowering his voice. "Clara made me promise to keep quiet, but with her gone, she paid me to falsify those records. I've carried that guilt for decades." The pressure mounted. Others were glancing our way. I needed to get him alone. Just then, Martha called everyone for the eulogy, interrupting us. As people moved, I slipped a note into Dr. Evans's hand with my number. "Call me," I whispered. He nodded, his eyes wide with fear. After the service, I drove home, my mind racing. He knew the whole story. But would he talk? My phone rang as I parked. It was David, his voice urgent. "Mum, we need to talk about your will. Martha says there might be issues." My hands clenched the steering wheel. They were already moving against me. I met Dr. Evans at a quiet cafe the next morning. His hands trembled around his coffee cup. "Clara was desperate," he began. "Her husband left her when the baby was born sick. She thought you had it all. A healthy child, a stable home." I listened, my tea cooling untouched. I aimed to get a signed statement from him, something I could use legally. It meant trusting a man who'd helped ruin my life. He agreed to write it down, but only if I promised not to involve the medical board. "I'm retired now," he pleaded. "I don't want trouble." As he scribbled on a napkin, my phone vibrated, a text from David. "Where are you? We're at your house. Martha's here too." The pressure intensified. They were checking on me. I finished with Dr. Evans, tucking the napkin into my bag. "Thank you," I said, though the words tasted bitter. Driving home, I planned my next move, a visit to my lawyer. When I arrived, David and Martha were on my porch, their faces tight with concern. "Mum, we need to discuss your finances," David said, stepping forward. "Martha thinks Clara might have left you something, but there are complications." I unlocked the door, my smile unwavering. "Come in, then." But inside I knew. They weren't here to help. They were here to control what came next. David followed me into the living room, his eyes scanning the space as if inventorying my possessions. "Mum, Martha's concerned about Aunt Clara's estate," he said, not sitting down. "She thinks there might be unresolved issues that affect you." I kept my hands steady, placing my bag on the sofa, the napkin from Dr. Evans safely inside. I just wanted to get them out quickly without raising suspicion. It made my stomach knot up, lying to my own son. Martha hovered near the doorway, her phone in hand. "Eleanor, Clara mentioned some documents before she passed," she added, her tone sweet but sharp. "Something about a family trust." I smiled, pouring glasses of water. "There's no trust, dear. Clara had little left." But inside, I noted how eager she was. David pressed on. "We should review your will too, to avoid problems." Just then, my doorbell rang, interrupting the moment. Through the window, I saw my neighbour, Mrs. Gable, with a package. "Excuse me," I said, grateful for the distraction. I signed for it, making small talk to delay. When I returned, David was glancing at my desk, where I'd left medical records visible. "What's all this, Mum?" he asked, pointing. I moved to block his view. "Old papers I'm sorting." Martha's phone buzzed. She looked annoyed. "I have to go," she said, but her eyes lingered on my bag. After they left, I checked the desk. A file was out of place. Martha must have touched it. Then I found a note slipped under a book. "Call about the clinic records." It wasn't my handwriting. My breath caught. Someone else was digging into the past. I drove to my lawyer's office the next morning, the signed napkin from Dr. Evans secure in my purse. The waiting room smelled of lemon cleaner and anxiety. I needed legal advice on how to use this confession without causing a scandal. Mr. Henderson, a kind man in his 60s, greeted me warmly. "Eleanor, what can I do for you?" I laid out the story, my voice low. He listened, his expression growing grave. "This is serious," he said. "But without more evidence, it's your word against a dead woman's. Admitting that my son might not be biologically mine would upend our family." He suggested quietly obtaining David's birth records from the hospital and checking for any financial motives. "Sometimes these things involve inheritance," he noted. As we spoke, my phone vibrated. A text from David. "Can we meet for lunch? I have news." I felt the pressure building. He was getting closer. Mr. Henderson promised to discreetly inquire about Dr. Evans and the clinic. Back in my car, I felt a flicker of hope. But then I remembered Martha's note. I decided to visit the clinic where Clara volunteered, now a community health centre. When I arrived, the place was bustling. At the records desk, I asked about old maternity logs. The clerk, a young man, shook his head. "Those are archived, and access requires family permission," I insisted, showing my ID. He relented, bringing a dusty ledger. As I flipped through, a name caught my eye. Clara had signed as a witness on multiple birth forms, including David's, but next to it was another signature, Martha's mother, who worked there too. My hands trembled. Martha's family had been involved all along. At home, I spread the ledger copies on my kitchen table, the faint smell of ink reminding me of old libraries. I needed to connect the dots between Clara, Martha's mother, and the baby switch. It weighed heavily on me emotionally. Every document felt like a betrayal of decades of family bonds. David called again, his voice strained. "Mum, Martha says you've been acting secretive. Are you okay?" I assured him I was fine, but I heard the doubt. After hanging up, I noticed a car parked outside, a sedan I didn't recognize. I felt more and more pressure. Were they watching me? I focused on the ledger. Clara's signatures clustered around a specific week, and Martha's mother, Helen, was listed as a supervisor. Then I found a payment entry. A small sum transferred from Clara to Helen around that time. It was hush money. My heart ached. This was premeditated. I needed to find Helen, though she passed years ago. Maybe her old diaries were with Martha. Just then, my granddaughter Lily called, her voice cheerful. "Grandma, can I come over? I found some of Great-Aunt Clara's photo albums in my mum's attic." This sudden change could help. When Lily arrived, she handed me a box. "Mum said to throw them out, but I thought you'd want them." I thanked her, my hands shaking. After she left, I opened the box. Inside, tucked between photos, was a sealed envelope addressed to me in Clara's handwriting. The date was from last month. I sliced it open. Inside, a letter confessed everything again, but added a detail. "Helen helped me because she owed me money. Martha knows nothing." But I doubted it. The letter ended with a plea for forgiveness. I set it down, my mind racing. Martha had to know something. Why else would she be so interested? The doorbell rang again. Through the peephole, I saw David standing there, his face grim. "Mom, we need to talk now," he said, holding up a document. It looked like a court order. I opened the door, my pulse quickening. David stepped in, waving a paper. "It's a petition for competency evaluation, Mum. Martha filed it, saying you're making irrational decisions." The injustice stung. I was being portrayed as senile. I wanted to fight this without revealing my investigation. The shame of my own son doubting me was hard to bear. I kept my voice calm. "On what grounds?" He avoided my eyes. "She says you're obsessed with old stories and wasting money on legal fees." I pointed to the table. "I'm organizing family history, David. That's all." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Just comply with the evaluation, and it'll go away." But I knew better. Once started, these things snowballed. After he left, I called Mr. Henderson. He advised gathering evidence of my sound mind and the baby switch to counter the petition. I felt intense pressure. I had to act fast before they restricted my rights. I spent the afternoon compiling bank statements, doctor's notes, and the ledger copies. Then I remembered the photo albums. Flipping through, I found a picture of Clara and Helen with 2 babies, one wrapped in a blue blanket, one in pink. On the back, scribbled, "The day we fixed things." An unexpected detail. It implied more than one switch. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Stop digging or else." I froze. Who was this? Martha? Or someone else? I saved the message, my hands cold. Later that evening, I checked my email. There was a message from the clinic archives clerk. "I found more records you might want. Meet me tomorrow." It felt like a trap, but I had to risk it. I replied agreeing, then packed a bag with all my evidence. If something happened, I'd be ready. As I locked up, I saw the sedan again, parked down the street. This was getting dangerous. I drove to the park for the meeting, the morning dew fresh on the grass. The clerk, a nervous young man named Ben, waited on a bench. "I shouldn't be doing this," he whispered, handing me a folder. "But after you left, I looked deeper. Your sister's file had a sealed section, financial transactions to a Dr. Evans." I opened the folder. It showed monthly payments from Clara to the doctor for years, labeled as consultation fees. I intended to use this as leverage against the competency petition. Realizing how deep the deception went poisoned my memories. Ben hurried off, and I sat to read. The payments continued until recently, meaning Dr. Evans was still involved. But he seemed remorseful now. I felt pressure build as my phone rang. It was Mr. Henderson. "Eleanor, the court date is set for next week. We need your evidence ASAP." I assured him I had it. Driving home, I planned to visit Dr. Evans again for a recorded statement. But when I arrived, his house was dark. A neighbor called out, "He's in the hospital. Heart attack last night." An unexpected interruption. I rushed to the hospital, finding him in a shared room, weak but awake. "Eleanor," he croaked. "I told Martha everything yesterday. She threatened me." My blood ran cold. Martha knew, and she was acting fast. I recorded his confession on my phone, his voice faint but clear. Leaving, I felt a mix of triumph and dread. Back home, I emailed the recording to Mr. Henderson. Then I checked my security cameras. I'd installed them after the threats. The footage showed Martha sneaking around my house last night, trying the back door. She left when the alarm beeped. I saved the clip. Now I had proof of her harassment. But as I prepared to call the police, my doorbell rang. It was a process server with another document, a temporary restraining order against me, filed by Martha, claiming I was harassing her. I laughed bitterly. The irony was sharp. I accepted the papers, my mind already crafting my response. This war was just beginning. The restraining order papers felt heavy in my hands. Martha claimed I was harassing her with baseless accusations about the baby switch. I needed to have this order dismissed immediately before it damaged my credibility for the competency hearing. It meant my own family was using the legal system against me. I called Mr. Henderson from my kitchen, my voice tight. "She's playing offense," I said. He agreed to file a counter motion, citing my evidence of her trespassing and the threatening text. "We'll argue she's trying to silence you," he reassured me, but the pressure mounted when David showed up unannounced, his face a mask of concern. "Mum, Martha is scared of you. What's going on?" I showed him the security footage of her at my door. "Does this look scared?" He shifted uncomfortably. "She says you edited that." The distrust in his eyes hurt more than any legal document. After he left, I reviewed Dr. Evans's recorded confession. His voice was weak but clear. Martha knew. She paid me to keep quiet after Clara died. This revealed that Martha wasn't just covering up the past. She was actively perpetuating the lie. I made copies of the recording for my lawyer and stored one in a safe deposit box. Later, I checked my email and found a message from the clinic clerk, Ben. "Martha contacted me," he wrote. "She offered me money to say you pressured me for records." I replied, telling him to stay calm and keep our communications. As I prepared for bed, my doorbell rang. It was a delivery, a bouquet of flowers. The card read, "Let's forget the past. Martha." I didn't touch them. The sweet smell made me nauseous. This was no peace offering. It was a reminder that she was watching and she knew where I lived. I met Mr. Henderson at his office to sign the counter motion against the restraining order. The air conditioning hummed loudly, a cold contrast to the summer heat outside. I aimed to solidify our legal strategy before the competency hearing next week. Showing the judge that Martha was the aggressor could swing things in my favor. The emotional strain was immense. I was using my savings for this fight, money I'd set aside for my grandchildren. Mr. Henderson laid out the plan. "We'll present the recording, the security footage, and the financial records from Clara. It paints a picture of conspiracy." As we talked, my phone buzzed with a call from Lily. I let it go to voicemail, but a text followed. "Grandma, Mum says I can't visit you anymore. She says you're sick." The pressure tightened its grip. Martha was isolating me from my family. I focused on the task, signing the papers with a steady hand. After leaving the office, I drove to the bank to access my safe deposit box. I added the flower card from Martha, noting its ironic timing. The bank teller, a woman my age, smiled warmly. "Planning for the future?" she asked. I just nodded. If only she knew. Back in my car, I listened to Lily's voicemail. Her voice was small, confused. "I don't think you're sick, Grandma." That gave me an idea. I needed to talk to Lily to see if she knew anything. I drove to her school and waited in the parking lot. When she came out, she ran to me, hugging me tightly. "Mum's lying," she whispered. "I heard her on the phone. She said something about a trust fund that belonged to her mother, and that you were going to ruin it." This showed that it was always about money. A trust fund from Clara that Martha believed was hers. But if David wasn't Clara's biological son, who was the rightful heir? I hugged Lily back, my mind racing. As I drove away, I saw Martha's car turn into the school lot. She had followed me. Martha blocked my car at the school exit, her face furious through the windshield. She rolled down her window. "Stay away from my daughter!" she shouted. I remained calm, my hands on the wheel. I needed to de-escalate this without causing a scene that could hurt my case. It meant I had to swallow my anger while she publicly shamed me. "I was just picking up my granddaughter," I said evenly. "That's what grandmothers do." She sneered. "The court will decide that soon." Then she drove off, tires screeching. The pressure was intense. Every interaction was now a potential weapon against me. I drove straight to the county records office, my aim to find any mention of Clara's trust fund. The clerk, an older gentleman this time, was more helpful. I searched under Clara's name and found it, a small trust established decades ago, with Helen, Martha's mother, as the original beneficiary. But the terms stated it would pass to Clara's lawful issue. If David was legally Clara's son, he might be the beneficiary, not Martha. This changed everything. I paid for copies, my heart pounding. As I left, I saw Ben, the clinic clerk, waiting outside. He looked nervous. "Martha came to my apartment," he said. "She threatened my job if I talked to you again." I thanked him for his courage and advised him to document everything. Back home, I spread the trust documents on my table. The value wasn't huge, but it was enough to motive decades of lies. My phone rang. It was Mr. Henderson. "Good news," he said. "The judge dismissed the restraining order. He called it a transparent attempt to harass." I sighed with relief. But then Mr. Henderson added, "But Martha's lawyer subpoenaed your medical records. They're pushing hard on the competency angle." The victory felt hollow. They were digging into my private life, looking for any sign of weakness. I looked at the trust papers again. If I could prove David was Clara's biological son, the money should be his. But did I want to destroy his sense of identity to win this fight? The subpoena for my medical records arrived by certified mail. I sat at my kitchen table, the formal document feeling like an invasion. I had to prove my mental fitness without appearing defensive. Mr. Henderson suggested I undergo an independent evaluation with a geriatric specialist of my choosing. "It will strengthen our position," he said. It meant enduring a battery of tests and questions, laying my mind bare for strangers. I scheduled the appointment for the next day, feeling the pressure of the looming court date. David called, his voice cautious. "Mum, Martha says you got the restraining order thrown out. Is that true?" I confirmed it, adding, "Because I didn't do anything wrong." He was silent for a moment. "She says you have a brain tumor, that it's affecting your judgment." The absurdity of it made me laugh, but it also chilled me. They were inventing illnesses now. The evaluation was thorough and exhausting. The doctor, a kind woman named Dr. Lee, asked about my memory, my daily routines, and my understanding of the legal situation. I answered everything honestly, my focus sharp. At the end, she smiled. "Eleanor, you're as sharp as someone 20 years younger. I'll write a very strong report for your lawyer." I left the clinic feeling vindicated, but as I walked to my car, I saw a familiar sedan parked across the street. Martha was inside, watching me. She didn't approach, just stared. It was a silent threat. That evening, I decided to review Clara's old photo albums again. I needed a picture of the babies, something to visually support the switch. In one album, I found a photo tucked behind a page, an ultrasound image. On the back, in Clara's handwriting, "My son's heart. The defect is clear." And a date. It was dated before David was born. If this was Clara's son's ultrasound, and David was supposedly healthy, it was physical proof of the swap. My hands trembled. This was the evidence I needed. But as I held it, my doorbell rang. It was two police officers. "Ma'am, we have a report of a disturbance here," one said. I looked past them and saw Martha standing on the sidewalk, phone in hand. She was escalating. The officers were polite but firm. "We received a call about screaming coming from this residence," the taller one said. I kept my voice steady. "I've been alone all evening, officer. You can check my security cameras. They have audio." I showed them the system on my phone, the timeline quiet. They apologized and left, but not before giving Martha a disapproving look. She had crossed a line, wasting police resources. I immediately aimed to secure the ultrasound photo and all other evidence in a location Martha couldn't access. The emotional toll was a deep sadness. This was my family, and we were involving the law in our ugliest secrets. I packed a small bag with the most critical documents: the ultrasound, the trust papers, Dr. Evans's recording, and the ledger copies. I drove to my friend Agnes's house. She lived a few towns over and had offered her spare room as a safe place. The pressure was immense now. I felt like I was fleeing my own home. Agnes, a widow my age, made me tea and listened without judgment. "Family can be the hardest battle," she sighed. I stored the evidence in her lockbox, feeling a slight relief. Later that night, my phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number, but I recognized the pattern. It was Ben, the clinic clerk. "Martha was at the clinic today. She tried to get into the archived records room. She was arguing with the director." This was a significant shift. Martha was getting desperate, making mistakes. I thanked him and told him to be careful. The next morning, I returned home, cautiously. Everything seemed normal. But when I checked my mail, there was a formal letter from the court. The competency hearing had been moved up. It was now in 3 days. They were trying to rush me, to catch me unprepared. I called Mr. Henderson, and we agreed to meet that afternoon to finalize everything. As I gathered my notes, I found a single fresh flower on my kitchen table. A lily. I hadn't bought it. Someone had been inside my house. The lone lily on my kitchen table felt like a violation. Someone had been in my home while I was away. I immediately checked my security camera footage on my phone, my hands shaking. The system showed a blurry figure entering through the back door yesterday evening. A woman in a hoodie, but the face was obscured. She spent only a few minutes inside, leaving the flower. I called the police to report the break-in, my voice steady despite the fear. I needed to document this intrusion for the upcoming competency hearing. It meant admitting my home wasn't safe, which was a hard blow to my independence. The officer who arrived took notes and dusted for fingerprints, but he was skeptical. "Ma'am, are you sure you didn't just forget the flower?" he asked. I showed him the camera timestamp, but he shrugged. Could be a prank. After he left, I reinforced the locks and set additional cameras. The tension was building. With the hearing in 3 days, I couldn't afford distractions. I decided to move the most sensitive evidence to Agnes's house permanently. As I packed a box, I noticed my desk drawer was slightly ajar. Inside, Clara's old photo album was missing. Martha must have taken it. Why would she want that? Then I remembered the ultrasound photo tucked inside. That was her target, but I had already made copies. This event changed my priorities. I needed to get it back or prove she took it. I called Mr. Henderson, updating him. He advised caution. "Don't confront her directly. We'll use this in court." Later, I received an email from Ben, the clinic clerk. "Martha was fired today for attempting to alter records," he wrote. "She's desperate." I felt a grim satisfaction. But as I read on, he added, She mentioned something about a safety deposit box key from Clara. My breath caught. Clara had a key I never knew about. Where was it? I searched my memory and realized Clara gave me a small trinket box years ago. I found it in my closet, and inside, under the lining, was a key labeled with a bank name. This changed everything. What was in that box? I had to find out before Martha did. My phone buzzed. A text from David. "Mum, we need to talk face to face. It's urgent." I didn't reply. The key felt cold in my hand. I drove to the bank listed on the key, my heart pounding with each mile. The branch was in a quiet part of town, one I rarely visited. I needed to see what Clara had hidden in her safety deposit box before Martha could claim it. Uncovering more secrets felt like betraying my sister's memory, but I had no choice. The bank manager, a stern woman named Mrs. Wells, required ID and the key. "This box is under Clara Smith's name," she said. "Are you the executor?" I showed her Clara's will naming me as such, which I had brought just in case. She led me to the vault. The box was small, and inside I found a stack of letters and a sealed envelope addressed to me. I sat in the private room, opening it. Clara's handwriting detailed the entire baby switch, but with a new revelation. Martha was not Helen's biological daughter. She was adopted. Helen couldn't have children, so Clara gave her Martha to raise in exchange for help with the switch. Learning this was overwhelming. It meant Martha had no rightful claim to anything through bloodline. The tension grew as I realized how deep the lies went. I photographed the documents for evidence. As I left the bank, my phone rang. It was Mr. Henderson. "Eleanor," Martha's lawyer filed a motion to delay the hearing, claiming new evidence. "The judge is considering it." I clutched the letters tighter. What new evidence could she have? Driving home, I noticed the same sedan following me. I took a detour and lost it, but my hands were sweaty on the wheel. Back home, I hid the originals with Agnes. Then I reviewed the letters. One was from Helen to Clara, pleading for money to keep quiet about Martha's adoption. This was leverage, but as I read, I found a receipt for a DNA test kit dated last month. Clara had tested Martha and David. The results weren't here. Where were they? My doorbell rang. It was a delivery man with a package. A DNA test kit addressed to me. I hadn't ordered it. The return address was Martha's. She was pushing me to prove things myself. The unrequested DNA kit felt like a taunt. I set it aside, my mind racing. I needed to stay focused on the hearing, now potentially delayed. I intended to use Clara's letters to dismantle Martha's claims in court. Accepting these truths meant facing that my family was built on lies, which was emotionally draining. I called Mr. Henderson, and we agreed to submit the letters as evidence of Martha's motives. "This shows she's not a blood relative, so her interest in the trust is fraudulent," he said. The tension eased a bit, but Martha's motion for delay could give her time to find the DNA results. Later that day, David visited, his expression grim. "Mum, Martha says you have documents that prove I'm not your son. Is that true?" The directness shocked me. I invited him in, my heart aching. "David, I've learned things about the past that are painful, but you will always be my son." I showed him the ultrasound photo and explained the switch, omitting the adoption part for now. He sat silently, tears in his eyes. All those years of doctors, of pain. Because of Aunt Clara? He didn't rage, he just looked lost. This conversation changed everything. I had hoped to protect him, but the truth was out. After he left, I felt a mix of relief and sorrow. I checked my email and found a message from the DNA testing company. Martha had requested my records be sent to her. citing legal authority. I called them immediately to block it, citing privacy laws. The representative agreed, but warned, if there's a court order, we must comply. A small surprise came when I reviewed Clara's letters again. One mentioned a lawyer named Mr. Gray who handled the adoption. He might still be alive. I found his office online and called, leaving a message. As I hung up, my security alarm blared. Someone was at the back door. I grabbed my phone and saw on camera Martha trying to pick the lock. I called the police, but she fled before they arrived. They found a note she dropped. "Stay out of my life." Just then, my phone rang. It was Mr. Gray returning my call. Mr. Gray's voice was frail but clear over the phone. "Eleanor? I remember Clara's case. The adoption was private, but I have records." I arranged to meet him at his office the next morning, hoping to get sworn statements about Martha's adoption to solidify my case. It felt wrong digging into such personal history, but staying silent would be worse. The tension was unending. With the hearing possibly delayed, Martha had more time to scheme. I arrived at Mr. Gray's small, dusty office in an old building. He was in his 80s, but sharp. "Clara was desperate to give Martha a good home," he said, handing me copies of the adoption papers. Helen couldn't have children, and Clara wanted her daughter to have a stable life. The papers showed Martha was legally Helen's daughter, but with no biological tie to Clara either. This meant Martha had no claim to Clara's estate through blood, only if named in a will. I thanked him and got his notarized affidavit. Driving home, I felt a sense of closure building. But when I arrived, David was waiting on my porch, his face pale. "Mum, I took a DNA test," he said. "I'm not your biological son." He handed me the results. My heart broke seeing his pain. "It doesn't change anything," I whispered, hugging him. He pulled back. "But it changes everything. Martha showed me documents. She says you knew all along and kept it from me." The dynamic changed. Martha was poisoning my relationship with my son. I showed him Clara's letters and the adoption papers. "Martha is not who she says she is either," I explained. He read them, his confusion growing. "Why would she do this?" he asked. I had no answer. Later, I called Mr. Henderson to update him. He was optimistic. "With this, we can argue Martha has no standing." But as we spoke, I received an alert. My bank account had been flagged for unusual activity. Someone had tried to access it using my stolen information. I knew it was Martha. I changed my passwords immediately. Then, David offered to help me. "I believe you, Mom. Let's fight this together." It was a turning point. But as we talked, my phone buzzed with a news alert, a local story about family fraud cases. David's next words hung in the air. "Martha is planning to sue you for defamation." David's support felt like a lifeline. We sat at my kitchen table, strategizing like allies instead of adversaries. I needed to preempt Martha's defamation lawsuit by exposing the truth first, in a controlled way. It meant risking public humiliation, but hiding would be more damaging. David suggested we hold a family meeting to present the evidence. "Let's get everyone together. Me, my kids, even Martha if she'll come," he said. The stakes were high. If Martha refused, it would look bad for her. I agreed, and we scheduled it for 2 days later, before the hearing. I spent the next day gathering all documents, the adoption papers, Clara's letters, the ultrasound, everything. Mr. Henderson helped draft a summary to share. That evening, Lily called, her voice excited. "Grandma, Mum got a letter from a lawyer. She's really upset." I didn't reveal what I knew. Things took a turn when I checked my mail and found a formal notice. Martha had indeed filed a defamation suit against me, claiming I was spreading falsehoods about her parentage. The irony was thick. I called Mr. Henderson, and he laughed. She's digging her own grave. We'll countersue for harassment. The next day, David and I prepared for the family meeting. He seemed stronger, more resolved. I've lived a lie, but I won't let Martha profit from it, he said. As we set up the living room, the doorbell rang. It was Martha, alone, her face tight with anger. I'm not here for your circus, she spat. But then she saw David standing with me, and her confidence wavered. David, don't be fooled, she said. He stepped forward. We have proof, Martha. It's over. She laughed bitterly. Proof? I have proof too. She pulled out a document, a DNA test, showing she is Clara's biological daughter after all. I was shocked. How could that be? Clara's letters said she was adopted. Martha smirked. Clara lied to you. She always did. My mind reeled. If Martha was Clara's blood, her claim to the trust was valid. Then the doorbell rang. It was Mr. Henderson arriving, his face grim, holding another document. Eleanor, we have a problem, he said. Mr. Henderson stepped inside, his face pale as he handed me a document. This is a court order to seize all of Clara's estate records, including any DNA evidence, he said, his voice low. Martha smirked, crossing her arms. I told you, I'm Clara's real daughter. That trust is mine. I felt a cold knot in my stomach. I needed to verify Martha's DNA claim immediately, before the hearing in 2 days. It meant diving deeper into family secrets I wished were buried. David stood beside me, his hand on my shoulder. We'll get through this, Mom. But it was clear that our family was tearing apart publicly. Martha's pressure intensified as she waved her own DNA report. See? I have the proof. You're just a bitter old woman. Mr. Henderson intervened. This court order gives us access to independent verification. We'll use a lab of our choice. Just then, my phone buzzed. A text from Lily. Grandma, I found something in Mum's room. A receipt for a DNA service that isn't accredited. This unexpected detail gave me hope. I excused myself to call Lily, learning Martha used a shady online service. When I returned, Martha was arguing with David. You're siding with her, after she lied to you your whole life? David's voice was firm. I'm siding with the truth. I announced we would have the tests redone by a certified lab. Martha's confidence wavered. She insisted on her lawyer being present. We agreed to meet at the lab tomorrow. After she left, Mr. Henderson stayed to discuss strategy. If her test is fake, we can file for fraud, he said. But I worried about the emotional toll on David. Later, I checked Clara's safety deposit box documents again and found a note I'd missed. Martha's birth certificate is forged. My hands trembled. Could it be? I called the Vital Records office to request a verification. They said it would take a week. Too long. I needed a faster way. That evening, David and I reviewed everything. He noticed something in Martha's DNA report. The dates didn't match the testing kit she claimed to use. This might be altered, he said. We decided to confront her at the lab. As I prepared for bed, my doorbell rang. It was a process server with another lawsuit. Martha was suing for emotional distress. I accepted the papers, my resolve hardening. But when I opened them, I saw she had included David as a co-plaintiff. My own son was now part of her case. I stood in the certified lab's waiting room, the sterile smell reminding me of hospitals. David, Mr. Henderson, and Martha were there, along with her lawyer. I aimed to get a definitive DNA test result today to end this battle. It was emotionally draining to see David caught between us. Martha refused to provide a new sample initially, claiming harassment. Her lawyer argued it was unnecessary, but the lab technician insisted. "Without a fresh sample, we can't proceed," he said. The pressure mounted as Martha relented, but she demanded I be tested too, to prove I wasn't Clara's sister. I agreed, though it felt invasive. As we gave our samples, David volunteered his as well. "Let's clear this up for good," he said. The tests would take 48 hours, just before the hearing. Afterward, Martha approached me. "You'll regret this," she whispered. I didn't respond. Driving home, I felt exhausted. David followed me to my house. "Mum, I'm not suing you," he assured me. "Martha added my name without my consent." I believed him, but the legal papers said otherwise. We called Mr. Henderson, who advised filing a motion to remove David's name. Later, I checked my email and found a message from the Vital Records office. They had expedited Martha's birth certificate verification due to the court order. It was a digital copy. The certificate was indeed forged, issued by a closed clinic with no real doctor. This was the breakthrough I needed. I forwarded it to Mr. Henderson, but then I received a call from Lily, crying. "Mom locked me in my room for talking to you," she sobbed. I told her to stay calm and that I'd help. This changed things. Martha was escalating to abuse. I called child services to report it, my heart aching for Lily. After hanging up, I reviewed the forged certificate again. It listed Clara as the mother, but the dates were wrong. Clara was out of the country that year. How did I miss that? I had proof Martha was lying. But as I celebrated, my security system alerted me. Someone was tampering with my car in the driveway. I looked out the window and saw Martha slicing my tires. I called the police as Martha fled into the night. The officers took a report and noted the vandalism, but without catching her in the act, it was my word against hers. I needed to secure my property and protect Lily from Martha's wrath. It meant involving authorities more deeply, which felt like admitting I couldn't handle my own family. David arrived quickly, his face grim. "I'm moving in with you until this is over," he declared. I appreciated his support, but it meant sacrificing his own peace. We installed more cameras and motion sensors. The pressure was relentless. Martha knew she was cornered. The next morning, Mr. Henderson called with news. The judge had dismissed the defamation suit against me after seeing the forged birth certificate. "But the competency hearing is still on," he warned. "Martha is pushing harder." I focused on preparing for that, gathering all evidence. Later, I visited child services with David to check on Lily. They had placed her with a temporary foster family after confirming Martha's instability. It broke my heart, but Lily was safe. Martha was furious, leaving me voicemails full of threats. I saved them all. As we left the agency, I saw Martha watching from across the street. She didn't approach, just stared with pure hatred. Back home, David and I sorted documents. He found an old letter from Clara in her trinket box, one I'd overlooked. It confessed that Martha was indeed her biological daughter, but Clara had given her up to hide a scandal, and the adoption was illegal. This revelation changed everything. Martha had a claim, but through fraud. I didn't know what to do with this information. "Should I expose it?" Mr. Henderson advised caution. "It might complicate things," he said. That evening, the lab called with preliminary DNA results. Martha and I shared no relation, but David and I had a slight match, suggesting distant kinship. The full report would come tomorrow. I felt a mix of relief and confusion. Just as I hung up, my phone buzzed with an alert. My bank called about suspicious activity. Martha had tried to access my account again. I changed all my passwords, but then I received an email from Martha. Meet me alone at Clara's old house tomorrow, or I'll release private photos of David. My blood ran cold. What photos? I had to go. I drove to Clara's vacant house, the paint peeling and garden overgrown. David didn't know I was here. I told him I was running errands. I needed to confront Martha and recover whatever she had on David. The risk was high, being alone with her, but not going would have been even worse. The house smelled of dust and decay. Martha waited in the living room, a folder in her hand. "You ruined my life," she said, her voice cold. "Now I'll ruin yours." She opened the folder to show old photos of David as a teenager in compromising situations. Nothing illegal, but embarrassing. "I'll send these to his employer," she threatened. I kept calm. "What do you want?" She demanded I drop all claims to Clara's estate and sign over any rights. I pretended to consider it, buying time. But then I noticed a familiar trinket box on the table, the one with Clara's key. Martha must have taken it from my house. I made a move to grab it, but she snatched it back. "This is mine," she hissed. Just then, my phone rang. It was David, but I didn't answer. The pressure was overwhelming. I had to diffuse this without violence. I offered a deal. I wouldn't contest the trust if she left David and Lily alone. She laughed. Too late. But then, the front door creaked open. It was David, holding his phone. "I recorded everything, Martha," he said. "You're blackmailing Mom." Martha's face fell. She hadn't expected this. David had followed me after sensing I was lying. This interruption changed the dynamic. We had evidence of her crimes. Martha lunged for the phone, but David stepped back. "It's over," he said. She screamed in frustration and ran out the back door. We didn't chase her. Instead, I picked up the trinket box. Inside, I found a small USB drive. When we returned home and plugged it in, it contained Clara's digital diary. The entries detailed how Martha was her daughter, but Clara regretted the adoption and wanted me to have the truth. The final entry said, "I left everything to Eleanor in my real will." I had been looking in the wrong place all along. Clara had a newer will I never knew about. Mr. Henderson was ecstatic when I told him. "This could end it," he said. But as we celebrated, my phone rang. It was the hospital. Dr. Evans had passed away, and in his effects, they found a letter for me. I sat in my living room, the hospital letter in my lap. Dr. Evans had written it before his death, confessing everything. He helped Clara forge Martha's birth certificate and the baby switch records, all for money. He named Martha as an accomplice in recent years, blackmailing him to keep quiet. I needed to use this letter to finally clear my name and secure my family's future. It felt like a weight lifting, but it meant losing the final shred of trust in my sister's memory. David read it with me, his eyes wide. "So, it was all about money from the start," he murmured. We forwarded it to Mr. Henderson, who filed it with the court. The competency hearing was tomorrow, and with this, Martha's case crumbled. The pressure eased, but I knew Martha wouldn't give up. Later that day, the police arrived with a warrant for Martha's arrest based on the evidence we provided: blackmail, forgery, and vandalism. They found her at a motel and took her in. Lily was returned to David's temporary custody, and she hugged me tightly. "I knew you'd fix it, Grandma," she said. I felt a deep relief, but also sadness for Martha. That evening, Mr. Henderson called with the DNA lab's full report. David and I were not mother and son, but we shared enough DNA to be aunt and nephew, confirming Clara was his biological mother. It was a bittersweet truth. David took it well. "You're my mom in every way that matters," he told me. We decided to honor Clara's real will, which left the trust to me, and I planned to use it for David's and Lily's education. As I settled into bed, I thought the battle was over, but then my doorbell rang. It was a woman I didn't recognize, claiming to be Clara's long-lost friend. She handed me an envelope. "Clara asked me to give this to you if anything happened to her," she said. Inside was a key to another safety deposit box, along with a note. "There's one more secret." The key felt cold in my hand, and Clara's note about one more secret echoed in my mind. I drove to the bank first thing in the morning, my heart pounding with a mix of dread and curiosity. I needed to open this new safety deposit box and finally uncover all the truths Clara had hidden. It was emotionally draining. Each revelation felt like peeling back another layer of a painful past. The bank manager, Mrs. Wells, recognized me and led me to the vault without question. Inside the box, I found a stack of old letters, a small jewelry box, and a sealed envelope labeled "For Eleanor Only." My hands trembled as I opened it. Clara's handwriting detailed how she had secretly placed my biological son, the healthy baby she took, with a distant cousin, fearing I would discover the switch. She included his name, James, and an address from 40 years ago. The pressure mounted as I realized James might still be out there, living a life I never knew. I sat in the private room, absorbing this. Then, I noticed a recent letter tucked beneath, from Martha, written before her arrest. It threatened to expose James if I didn't drop the charges against her. This turn of events changed everything. Martha knew about James and was using him as leverage even from jail. I gathered the documents and left the bank, my mind racing. Back in my car, I called Mr. Henderson and explained the situation. He advised caution. "We need to verify this before acting," he said. But I knew I had to find James, to see if he was safe and to finally close this chapter. As I drove home, I saw a car following me, a different one this time. I took a detour and lost it, but my hands were sweaty on the wheel. When I arrived, David was waiting on my porch, his face worried. "Mum, I got a call from Martha's lawyer. She's offering a deal if we don't pursue the case." I shook my head, clutching the new documents. "There's more, David." I showed him the letters about James. His eyes widened. "I have a brother?" he whispered. We went inside, and I explained everything. The doorbell rang. It was a courier with a package from Martha's lawyer. Inside was a photo of a man in his 50s, with a note. "James doesn't know you. Stay away." My breath caught. Martha was still playing games from behind bars. I stared at the photo of James, his face unfamiliar, yet strangely comforting. David sat beside me, his hand on mine. "We have to find him, Mum," he said softly. I nodded, determined to find James and make sure he was safe from Martha's schemes. It meant reopening old wounds and risking more family drama, but I couldn't leave this unresolved. It was an emotional burden, facing the son I never knew, and the life he might have had. I called Mr. Henderson, and he suggested hiring a private investigator to verify James's whereabouts discreetly. "We don't want to alert Martha or her contacts," he cautioned. I still felt the strain. Martha's lawyer kept sending emails, threatening to release sensitive information about James if I didn't comply. Later that day, I visited Agnes to update her and store the new documents safely. She offered her support, as always. "Family secrets always come out, Eleanor," she sighed. Back home, David and I searched online for any trace of James using the old address. We found a James Miller living in a town 2 hours away, about the right age. It felt like a lead. But then, my phone buzzed with a call from Lily, who was now staying with David. "Grandma, Mum called me from jail," she said, her voice small. "She told me to tell you that James is in danger if you contact him." This sudden change shifted my focus. Martha was using Lily to intimidate me. I reassured Lily and told David to keep her close. We decided to proceed with the investigator, but carefully. The next morning, the investigator, a retired police officer named Mr. Dowd, arrived at my house. He reviewed the documents and promised discretion. "I'll have something in a few days," he said. After he left, I felt a glimmer of hope. But that evening, as I sorted through Clara's old things, I found a locket in the jewelry box from the safety deposit box. Inside was a tiny photo of a baby, my biological son, I assumed. On the back, engraved, "To Clara, with love." It confused me. Why would Clara have a locket from James? Then I remembered the letters mentioned James was raised by Clara's cousin, who might have been close to her. This small surprise made me wonder if Clara had kept in touch with James all along. My phone rang. It was Mr. Henderson. "Eleanor, Martha's lawyer filed a motion to reduce her bail, claiming she has new evidence about James's identity." The legal battles were far from over. Mr. Dowd called with an update. James Miller was indeed the man from the photo, and he lived a quiet life as a carpenter, married with 2 grown children. He had no criminal record and seemed unaware of the family drama. I needed to meet him, to explain the truth and protect him from Martha's threats. It felt daunting. How would he react to a stranger claiming to be his biological mother? The emotional weight was heavy. I had missed his entire life. David offered to come with me, but I decided to go alone first. The tension grew when Martha's lawyer sent a formal letter warning that any contact with James would be considered harassment. I ignored it, focusing on the journey. I drove to James's town, a quaint place with tree-lined streets. His house was a modest blue home with a well-kept garden. I parked across the street, my hands shaking. Just as I gathered the courage to approach, a woman, his wife I assumed, came out and waved at a neighbor. They chatted briefly, and I heard her mention James was at work. This gave me time to think. I drove to his workplace, a local woodworking shop. Through the window, I saw him sanding a table, his movements calm and skilled. He looked happy. I couldn't bring myself to interrupt. What right did I have to upend his peace? This made me rethink what I was trying to do. Perhaps knowing the truth would only hurt him. As I sat in my car, my phone rang. It was David. "Mum, Martha was released on bail," he said, his voice urgent. Her lawyer pulled some strings. My heart sank. The strain returned. Martha was free and likely more desperate. I drove home, confused and tired. That night, I dreamed of Clara and the babies, waking with a start. In the morning, I found a note slipped under my door. "Leave James alone, or else." It wasn't signed, but I knew it was from Martha. She was watching me again. I called Mr. Henderson, and he advised increasing security. "We have to be careful," he said. But I realized I couldn't let Martha control this. I decided to write a letter to James, explaining everything gently, and let him decide if he wanted to meet. It was a risk, but it felt right. As I sealed the envelope, my doorbell rang. It was a process server with papers. Martha was suing for grandparent rights to Lily, claiming David was an unfit parent due to the family turmoil. The audacity took my breath away. I stood in my kitchen, the lawsuit papers in my hand, feeling a fresh wave of injustice. Martha was using Lily to hurt me. claiming that the family chaos made David unstable. I needed to fight this immediately to protect my granddaughter and my son. It meant diving back into legal battles, which drained my energy and savings. David was furious when I told him. "She won't get near Lily," he vowed. We called Mr. Henderson, who filed a counter motion to dismiss the case, citing Martha's criminal charges and lack of standing. It was overwhelming. Martha seemed to have endless resources and malice. Later, I mailed the letter to James, hoping for the best, but preparing for the worst. A few days passed with no response, and I tried to focus on normal life, baking, gardening, anything to calm my nerves. But then, Mr. Dowd called with surprising news. James had received my letter and wanted to meet. He had been curious about his origins and was open to talking. This change gave me hope. Maybe some good could come from this mess. We arranged to meet at a neutral cafe in his town. David insisted on coming for support. On the day of the meeting, I dressed carefully, my heart racing. James was already there when we arrived, sitting alone with a cup of coffee. He stood up as we approached, a tall, kind-faced man with my eyes. "Eleanor?" he said softly. We shook hands, and I introduced David. The conversation was awkward at first, but James listened patiently as I explained the story. He revealed that Clara's cousin had raised him but died years ago, and he always felt something was missing. He didn't blame me. He seemed understanding. But then he dropped a bombshell. Martha had contacted him weeks ago, claiming I was a liar trying to steal inheritance. He had been wary, but my letter matched some things he knew. This small revelation showed Martha had been ahead of me yet again. We parted with a promise to stay in touch. Driving home, I felt a strange peace. But when I arrived, there was a voicemail from Martha. "You met him. Now back off, or I'll make sure James loses everything." Her threats were empty, but they chilled me. I deleted it and called Mr. Henderson. "Let's end this," I said. He agreed to push for a final settlement on all fronts. As I hung up, I looked at photos of my family, David, Lily, and now James. I knew what I had to do. I sat on my porch swing, the morning sun warm on my face. The legal battles were finally over. Martha accepted a plea deal that included no contact with me or my family, and she dropped all suits. The trust from Clara was mine, and I decided to split it equally between David and James for their children's education. James and I had started writing letters, getting to know each other slowly, without pressure. David and Lily visited often, and our home felt full of laughter again. I spent my days gardening, volunteering at the local library, and enjoying quiet moments with Agnes. One afternoon, I sorted through Clara's remaining things and found a journal I'd missed. In it, she expressed regret for all the pain she caused, and her hope that I would forgive her one day. I closed it, feeling no anger, just sadness for what could have been. I planted a rose bush in my garden in memory of Clara, a simple gesture of closure. Life wasn't perfect, but it was peaceful. I had my family, my home, and my peace. That was enough.